but you're going nowhere. Don't blame me for what you've done, because I know that you are having fun.
Welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast, exposing the real estate secrets your agent doesn't want you to know. Here's your host, Tom Clary.
Well, don't you just walk away. That's when I'll say.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast. My name is Tom Clary, and I'm your host. I'm a real estate agent here in the beautiful state of California, Los Angeles to be exact. I'm here with my co-host and lender extraordinaire, Ron Bruno. Ron, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, what's news in the Bruno sphere?
It's a gray day here in Burbank.
It is gray, and it started drizzling on my car on the way here. I was like, damn, I got to get it washed again.
Yeah, this is
It's that time of year.
This is extreme weather in Southern California.
Yeah, it's it's tough. I have to actually slow down from 90 miles an hour to 85 miles an hour.
Right.
Not that I can actually go that speed on the freeway.
No,
Because maybe on one surface street near a school.
of course. Yeah,
You want to go fast by a school.
I mean, if you're going to break the law, why not?
Why not be
Why not go
flagrant?
all the way through?
Right? Exactly. Anything new or different going on with you?
There's a news article here.
Oh, what? You're going right for the news.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
even get a little foreplay first. You're not even gonna buy me dinner. All right.
No,
that's
we're going.
I guess everybody, we're going straight to the news.
We're going straight to the news.
Wow, he's got
it.
You got like tickets to the opera? What's going on?
Yeah,
you got an appointment after? You going out to dinner with Karen tonight or something?
I am going out to dinner.
Wow,
with
you
Karen.
are stampeding to that dinner.
Yes,
Holy cow!
yes. Yeah, we're going to an Italian restaurant in Silver Lake.
Oh,
Yes,
nice.
I'm bringing my
What's it
fedora.
called?
And
Your fedora?
yes,
It's a bird.
It's mandatory outerwear.
Right.
So it's Casa Buena. So they had a pretty nice menu.
That's Italian for
Nice home, I think.
nice home.
Well, yeah, which obviously.
Speaking of which,
and
we just skipped right over that, Ron. It was like
See?
fit so perfectly into a real estate podcast, and you just wanted to jump right past it.
all part of the plan.
Oh, Jesus.
All part of the plan.
All right, Bruno. So I'm now taking applications for new news people. No, I'm just kidding. So go ahead. So what's with the news?
Okay, so Amazon, they released their next list. So
Yes.
they slashed and burned all of the others, and they narrowed it down to 20.
Yeah,
20 cities.
Did all those other cities have like support groups to get over the grief of not having Amazon? I mean, they were doing some really silly things to try and influence.
Yeah.
We've talked about that before. This. I think it was the city of, was it Tulsa or something like, sent him, or someplace in New Mexico, sent him Taos or something like that, sent him a cactus, a 30-foot cactus. What is Jeff Bezos doing with a 40-damn-foot cactus?
If you compete with him, he will stick you on it.
Yeah, right? It's like
In addition to taking down your company, he will also
That's where I
torture
hang the
you.
bodies of my the people who
Exactly.
come across me. Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. But it's. I mean, this HQ2 is such a huge phenomenon because of the amount of infrastructure and jobs. And when we're talking about 50,000 jobs, $5 billion of investment, so it's a really big deal to the place, the city that actually wins it.
Right.
Right. And among their criteria is that they're looking for.
They had a list of they wanted like any kind of job application. They had a list of, hey, answer these questions about why your city is the best thing for it. And one of them was some of it was like being around urban and suburban areas so that people have stuff to do.
Correct.
And then there was also.
So there's a population of at least 1 million.
Right.
A business-friendly environment.
Right.
And urban and suburban areas with
Right.
the potential to attract and retain tech talent.
Right.
Right. And then they also asked for a diversity of housing options, availability of housing near potential sites, and pricing as well as cost of living data.
Right.
Right. So that's how housing is fitting into this whole equation. And there was a study, and this was actually by Bloomberg, and what they said is that if Amazon wants to locate its HQ2 in the most affordable spot for housing, there's an obvious choice. Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Pittsburgh.
Woo! Yeah, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Look, I think Pittsburgh has a very, it's got a burgeoning tech scene, from what I understand. I've actually seen some, I think it was a Bourdain episode recently that, Parts Unknown that he did, where he went to Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. It was very interesting kind of see that they're, trying to regain their kind of past glory that kind of went away with the steel.
Exactly. They used to have a football team there. I don't know what happened this year, but
we're going to get letters. And the interesting thing, though, that why I personally think Pittsburgh is not going to be in the running and it's because it's about attracting tech people. That's really what they want, a place where folks are going to be like, I want to go live there. That's I could see myself living there with my family and all that kind of thing, right?
Right.
Tesla, by the way, I think screwed the pooch on this one, where Tesla opened up, I think, in Sparks, Nevada, like somewhere out in the middle of the desert, where nobody wants to live there, and they're actually having real problems attracting people to work there.
Well, who wants to live in the desert with 120 degree temperatures?
Sparks, Nevada.
No.
The nearest thing you've got is Reno, and that's like Vegas's ugly sister. Right. Nobody wants to dance with her.
That's true.
Anyway,
it's true.
And now you're not even in Reno proper.
That's right. But what's interesting is so what they did was the article they ranked, and this was data prepared by Trulia.com. So they actually ranked the housing prices, and Pittsburgh was $129,900.
Wow.
Yeah, you could buy for the price of an LA starter home, you could buy 10 properties.
I could have like a mansion there.
Oh my God. You could have you could have a compound.
What's so funny is everybody talks to me about how, I could go out to, Texas or Oklahoma or whatever, and I could have a, 5,000 square foot, whatever. Yeah, but you would still, your income would be going down appropriately, proportionately too. Right. You're not going to be making the same amount of money there that you're making here.
Potentially. Right.
Potentially. Very rarely do you make that kind of equal,
Yeah. And then, there's another aspect to this. So, within, the number 20 on the list is Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So it is the most overpriced compared to the others on the list.
Right.
And, so LA, the average home price is $589,167.
Yeah, a little different.
A little bit different. So 5 times as high.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is they also say that, so for Pittsburgh, they have 9,000 homes available for sale compared to with about 10,000 in LA.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you're like, okay, so LA, there's still more homes, but LA is 4 times the size of Pittsburgh.
There's no here. Yeah.
Right. So obviously compared to other cities, there's a lot of supply of homes.
Yeah.
Right. And you that's a big piece. So the other cities that are on the list, so Philadelphia's next, and then you have Indianapolis and then Columbus, Ohio, and then Atlanta, right? So, shout out to, where my college is and all that.
Yeah.
And, right there in the middle is Nashville and Dallas and
I think
Raleigh.
I think that Atlanta and Dallas are probably going to be the
I think they're going to be the
because it's really a central hub, for flights all come into there. It's, Atlanta even has a big old burgeoning film industry there now.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Dallas has a big old tech industry that's, growing there.
Yep.
So I would put even money on Dallas, and with a slight underneath that, Atlanta is probably what I'd be saying. Now,
I would agree with you.
Completely lower on that spectrum is I know that my hometown of Woodland Hills or Warner Center was in the mix. Basically, yes. I'm assuming it's interesting when they say Los Angeles, but I know that Los Angeles had a number of different areas that were trying within Los Angeles.
Right. I think there's Orange County wanted to do something, and then maybe something downtown.
Which one was it? But here's the thing: is that if it was Warner Center, I could just imagine the NIMBYs in my neighborhood literally having a conniption fit, and I don't know if I can handle the protests on my street, right? Let alone if Amazon tried to move in, because there's some great space that's being torn down, and it's going to be huge out in Warner Center, and I think it's actually a logical place if they didn't have Seattle already, because it's West Coast already.
Yeah. So, it doesn't necessarily from a geographic perspective make sense to have it right, and just
why would you have one right
south
on top of the other? It
right. I mean, there's huge advantages, obviously. I mean, Amazon, they're not just in the logistics business, they're in the entertainment business. Yeah. So that's pretty massive. They already have a presence here, right?
There is an argument.
Big presence. Yeah. They bought out the
Culver
Studios. Yeah. So, they already have that, that foothold.
They're making a big move into that. So I don't see LA as even. I think it was kind of like a pity F. You know what I mean? I think that they were just trying to throw it to New York and LA just so they wouldn't lose customers.
In Boston.
And Boston, where the majority of people kind of are in the country.
Yep.
Just to make them like, hey, listen, pat them on the head and go, that's sweet.
Right.
But we're going to go,
Yeah, well, I mean, Atlanta and Dallas, part of the prerequisite is that they have to turn half the citizens into robots and be okay with self-driving cars and
Amazon Cyborg
and
9000
drones, flying all around you.
Yeah,
and
right.
Yeah, so, that's a trade-off.
It's a trade-off, but sometimes it's worth it.
Sometimes.
For those, packages arriving the next day, I might just go for it.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to implant something into my brain and in my arm? Sure. Whatever.
Why not?
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Anything else, sir?
No, that's good.
That's it. That's about it. All right. Well, it's time to bring our guest in for today. It's Stephen Rischall, one of the founders of 1080 Financial Group, a fiduciary financial advice firm. Stephen is an award-winning financial advisor. He's recognized by Investment News as one of the top 40 under 40 in the financial advice industry. He was ranked by Investopedia in the top 10 of their 100 most influential advisors. He's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Los Angeles Times, and even on KNX 1070 here in LA. He has a specialty in helping millennials and entrepreneurs find the right investments and prepare themselves for what lies ahead. And we're really, really lucky to have him here. Stephen, thank you so much for coming.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. Whenever we have someone for the first time on the podcast, we always ask them the same question. How the hell did you get here? And where the hell have you been?
Yeah, well, fortunately, it wasn't too far of a drive, so it was pretty easy to get here today, even with that good old LA
I don't think
traffic.
we mean it so literally, but yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you take my story back in the investment world. Believe it or not, I was one of those young kids. I'm still young, but one of those young kids that decided to invest some of my bar mitzvah money.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, did you have like an idea what you want to do with it? Like, or was it like, were you investing for something, or was it for like the future? You know
Honestly,
what I mean? Like, or was like for I really want that bike, or I really want that,
I just thought it was cool because my dad used to tell me these stories. That's back when they would print stock prices in the newspaper.
Okay.
And he would tell me, oh, this stock was up and this stock was down. And I thought it was really cool that you could own a piece of a company.
Yeah.
Now you go back to me and my 13-year-old self, and I'm playing video games and building computers. And I was like, hey, I want to invest in the company that makes these computer chips. I want to invest in these, video game companies. How do I do that? So I literally figured out how to do it.
Yeah. Great. And so you worked at a large firm for a little bit, right? Before you kind of broke out on your own. In kind of reading up in your on your website, I was kind of doing some research, and I saw that you said that you ran into conflicts of interest that you really saw in those firms. Go into kind of detail. What do you mean? What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I know you've all probably read those newspaper stories. You hear these stories of, hey, sell this product and you will qualify for that trip to Hawaii, or sell product A because it pays a higher commission than product B. And unfortunately, the more that you get involved in the financial services industry, if you open your eyes, you start to see very clearly that the client's best interest does not come first.
Right.
So that's frankly why I decided to go completely independent. My partner and I started 1080 Financial Group. Best decision we ever made, because our focus was to figure out a way that we could use technology and modernize the way that we focus on actually helping people make financial decisions.
Right. Right. So I know that you really kind of a lean and a focus on millennials and really kind of getting them prepped for their future. And what do you really see as like the top three issues that millennials face that are different from pretty much every other age group? Do you see any kind of differentiation there?
Huge. I mean, one of the most obvious ones is the over 1.3 trillion with a T in student loan debt.
Right.
Most of which, not all, but most of which is held by my fellow millennials, my peers. You better believe that's going to be a story we keep hearing come up in the news for many years to come. It's impacting everything from delaying family formation, delaying the ability to buy a home for many.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one. So definitely the student loan debt crisis is for real, and it's going to be rearing its ugly head soon enough. The other one is just frankly the cost of living. If you look at even adjusted for inflation, you look at wages. Wages have been stagnant for the most part for the past decade or so.
Right.
Yet the cost of goods in the store, they keep rising.
Yeah.
Right. The good old cost of education clearly keeps rising.
Yeah.
Cost of housing. I mean, you name it, everything else has gotten more expensive. And not as many folks, at least in my constituency, the millennials, have benefited in terms of their paycheck growing by that same degree. So that's another problem, is wage stagnation.
Yeah, right. And what about in terms of like, even technology? When I think about the millennial group, and I think about one of the things that kind of might be prevalent with them, for us in the kind of the higher end, you're millennial, but I'm kind of on the upper end, and I'm getting old. And
you're not that old.
I've kind of established myself in some sort of in a career that for right now has somewhat of a moat in terms of it can't be Uberized. It can't be, basically technology is finding ways to unemploy people in a weird way. And do you see that has an impact on millennials as well?
I would agree. I think technology has infiltrated our lives in many ways. It really just changes the way that we live our lives on a day-to-day basis. But from an employment standpoint, yes, there's many jobs that no longer really exist today. You've got a shift to what we like to call the millennial nomad, the perpetual independent contractor.
Yep.
This idea of working at a large company and having a pension and all these great benefits. It exists, but it's much, much harder to find these days. And, I wouldn't really put my bet on saying that that's going to exist, in the next 10 years. I think that's going to continue to shift. And I think there's a negative and a dark side to technology. We're so darn connected with our phones and social media. Yeah. I think that there's going to have some emotional and social impacts on our generation. And honestly, I'm really concerned for Generation Z, the kids even younger than us right now.
Do you, in terms of that kind of, that ultimate connectivity to, the internet and technology and all that, do you see, what is the most misleading thing you see from folks kind of using guidance from there?
Yeah. It's,
you know what I'm saying, right?
Like the WebMD. Oh my God.
Exactly. I could not put it better.
That could be cancer. No, it's a bruise on your elbow.
Right.
So, I think one of the potential issues we run into with technology is that everyone is all of a sudden an expert, right? You've got Google on your phone, so, you can prove your friend wrong or, win a bet instantly.
Funny. Can I just tell you, literally on the car ride here, I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were debating about when a song was released, or it's actually two songs being released. I said, no, that came out first. And you said, no, that one came out. And I said, what are we arguing for? Just look it up. I was right.
Or just Google it.
Just
right?
Google it. I when we're at parties or whatever, and somebody does this kind of thing, I always kind of did, my standard joke is, well, if only there was some sort of World Wide Web. You know what I mean? And that's because it's kind of taken away a lot. But I think that when any bumpkin can pretty much get on and call themselves an expert, how do you find yourself evading those kind of charlatans?
It is not easy, and unfortunately there's a lot of misinformation online. To your point, anyone with a cell phone or a webcam can post anything they want,
literally. And
I think really unfortunately about social media, just look at the numbers. You look at stories that are negative, right? Or someone picking on someone, bullying, right? That's a popular thing to talk about today. It's a big problem. All of those negative stories tend to be a lot more hot in terms of engagement and likes than the positive ones, right? Yeah. Someone talking crap about this other guy is going to get way more engagement than you telling this wonderful story about this family that you helped out. And I think that's really unfortunate too.
Right. It's funny when this all started kind of blossoming and kind of being, becoming prevalent, everybody was, the big thing was, we're going to democratize this. We're going to democratize that. And what was interesting was, I came from a film background. I used to be a producer for film and TV. And, there wasn't, for the amount that came out, there was this illusion that there were people that were not getting discovered, right? That they were, for whatever reason, Hollywood just wasn't seeing me or whatever. But as it turns out, they were actually pretty good gatekeepers in terms of talent. That, you go online and there's a lot of crap out there. You democratize. There's now a slush pile of 90% of the stuff. And maybe, 2 or 3% was stuff that I would have never known that happened, right? So the democratization of people's financial plan, their financial well-being, I think it can actually bring out people that are very dangerous for them.
Very much so.
And themselves.
Yeah.
In terms of like, I can go on YouTube and I can, I know how to buy stocks. I went on YouTube.
I'm a day trader.
And next thing you know, they're like, Mom, can I move back in? Because you lost it. I mean, don't you feel that that's another kind of aspect of this whole thing?
It is, because, right, the more information that we believe we have at our fingertips, making us or enabling us to be a quote unquote expert, we just have this false sense of confidence.
Yeah.
And, that's actually a big behavioral bias. I'm really interested in behavioral finance. And one of the behavioral biases that really hurts us is overconfidence, right? How many people do you know that are probably more overconfident? And it doesn't have to be just finances, but overconfident in some area in their life. But, it's just because they kind of got lucky or they caught a lucky break. It doesn't mean you're an expert or professional.
Yeah.
So we got to watch out for things like that.
Right. Absolutely. So, because to kind of pull this a little bit towards real estate, because this is a real estate podcast. So what is your feeling in general about, owning real estate versus renting? I mean, how do you feel about that?
I think in general, one of the biggest benefits to someone over time, especially the long term, is going to be owning real estate. I think it's really, really smart if you can be in a position to buy rather than rent.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that you should jump right into making this decision, right? Because it's not for everyone.
Right.
But I also think some of those fears of, well, the market seems really high, or, rates seem really high, or whatever it may be, you need to be careful of letting that talk you out of the conversation.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
I think a lot of it too, I'd say, Tom, is it's your perspective, right? If you're looking at the long term, do you really need to be that concerned with, let's say, a real estate crash? I have a lot of clients that ask me, hey, should I be buying my first home now? It seems like, especially here in LA, prices are really, really expensive.
Yeah.
Expenses, that's subjective. I would probably agree, though. It's pretty expensive here in LA.
Yeah, sure.
But just because something is the most expensive it's ever been today, that's not reason to say that it's going to crash tomorrow, nor is it reason to say that it's not going to be more expensive tomorrow. You don't know that.
Right. I mean, and, it's something that we've chatted on numerous podcasts and episodes, and you guys can go back and listen to them and hear, look, for right now, what I'm seeing is year over year, we're still appreciating. And so they're saying that there's projections of, around 8.7% appreciation coming in the next year.
Wow.
So that's still climbing. And on top of it, you got interest rates going up here and there. And it just becomes more expensive to buy a house. That's
right.
At this point, if someone had, and by the way, and to really kind of get at the crux of what you're talking about, and with the heart of it is, there's so many people who have an opinion of, I can't afford a house, or I need to save up for 30 years. And I could never. And they've never talked to a single expert. They never talked to a single person to get the actual facts and get on the road to actually, achieving what they want to achieve. And that starts with you guys. I mean, I've literally always said, as part of this pipeline, the financial advisor is step one. You guys start everybody, you draw the map. So how do you draw the map for someone who's a millennial specifically?
Right. I agree with everything you're saying there. We like to call it the continuum of care.
Yeah.
All these different types of, financial advisors that you have in your life. I don't mean necessarily an investment person like myself, but a financial advisor, right? Someone that's giving you advice in a financial means. So whether it has to do with real estate, a mortgage, your retirement, your investments, all of these folks are part of your continuum of care. So when it comes to us, and oftentimes a lot of my clients are asking me, Stephen, how can I start saving, to buy a home? What should be my target goal? Now, look, I get it. Again, especially here in LA, that could be like a daunting task, right?
Yeah.
Your goal of wanting to probably save up somewhere in that realm of 20% for a down payment. That is not easy when, like Ron was saying earlier, the median cost of a house here in LA is like 5 something. And I can tell you right now, where I live, that's like a condo.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that's about what I just spent on my condo last year. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so you just recently purchased a house. What was that experience like? I mean, what did you run into as a millennial buying a house? Like, what were the things that kind of made you go, I didn't know that was something?
Right. So, let me just be frank and honest about this.
Yeah.
I had the same thoughts running through my head as I hear a lot of my clients tell me, right? So if I rewind a year or two ago, it's like, wow, the market seems really expensive, right? So first it's like, should I buy? It's scary. This is a humongous purchasing decision for many people, by the way, right? Buying a home is the single largest financial transaction they'll ever have in their entire life.
Right.
It is a really big, serious decision.
Seems daunting and scary. I mean, it really does.
But it doesn't have to be.
No.
Right? So at first I was having that thought. I was scared. I was nervous. I was like, I'm never going to be able to afford this. But then I knew the same advice that I give to all my clients. Look, you've got to come up with a game plan.
Yes.
Start looking so you get a realistic picture of what you're in for. So don't kid yourself.
Right.
But then you got to be serious, right? So I would say start by being a smart spender. It's really hard to focus on saving, but guess what? If you reframe that conversation and you just get more smart about the way you're spending your money, aka not spending as much, you end up saving.
Give me some examples of what you call smart spending. Like, what do you consider that?
Yeah, here's a really good example, right? So I'm a big time backcountry skier, right? And you might say, "Oh my God, you're spending money on
By the way,
skis."
that was one of the things on your website you were saying a lot. Is like, I am an ardent adventurer. I was like, well, that takes risk. That seems to be on the other side of this coin here, right? Because I'm assuming you're not so big on risk on what you do, right?
Well, I think with risk comes
this is where
reward.
You kind of, this is where you find your kind of
the more you're willing to hike up into the backcountry, the better that snow gets. I'll tell you that. But no, for real, check this out, right? I've been wanting.
You lost me at hike.
The air's nice up there.
Okay,
Tom.
all right.
But
I'll make hot toddies at the bottom of the hill.
As long as there's one waiting for me, I'm cool with that. But look, think of it this way, right? I knew I wanted to buy a new set of skis.
Right.
I knew I wanted to do this a while ago. Now, I didn't have the impulse to just go buy it right away. Now, trust me, I really wanted to buy them right away. Yeah. But I was smart enough to hold myself back from doing it because I knew, well, geez, this ski season's almost over. Why don't I at least wait till next year? Yeah. And then next year rolled around, and you know what I actually did? I had the discipline to say, as bad as I really want to do more in skiing and snowboarding this season, I'm going to actually only go to the mountain a couple times this season. I'm not going to do my normal thing. Mm-hmm. And instead, with the money that I'm not spending towards that, towards that experience right now in the current moment, I'm consciously going to save that money so I can then go buy the skis that I want and enjoy it even more next season. Right. That's precisely what I did, and take it to another level now, right? We all know that certain times of the year, you tend to get better deals on things.
Sure, absolutely.
So I did the same thing. I waited till around Black Friday of this year, actually. Mm-hmm. And it gets even better than this. You're going to love this, Tom. I did not need to buy the brand new 2018 skis because guess what? I could buy brand new ones that had never been used from last year's 2017s. And come on, the technology didn't change.
Isn't that different? Come on, yeah.
The color on the top changed a little bit. And I got a fresh new set of skis that I can't wait to, hit the slopes with.
Right.
But that's the point. I took a purchase that would have otherwise cost me around $1,100 to $1,200, skis and bindings and everything, top of the line stuff.
Right.
I still got brand new stuff. I bought it the right time of the year. I saved up for it a year in advance. And guess what? Instead of paying $1,200, I spent less than $550 on both.
So it's really about having really good strategies for your purchases. Is what it kind of sounds. One aspect of this whole smart spending. Ron, you had something?
I was just going to say, my wife, Karen, she calls that girl math, right? So there's something that, she has on Pinterest and, has her eye on it. And, it's just like looking for the deals. And
by the way, everybody, that is Karen saying that.
That's right.
Not Ron. We don't want to hear from you folks.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
Ron didn't say that.
I didn't call it girl math. Karen called it girl math. Did. So, you go on Ebates or Mr. Rebate, so you get that extra savings on top of it because that's cash back, and then you go through and you apply this coupon code and that coupon code, so all of these things add up, right? So
yep, they sure do. And so that's the thing, right? Getting back to the home purchase, okay? So you toss in a little bit of smart spending in there, helps you start saving. But let's be honest, this is a big financial goal. You do need to consciously save for that. So you've got to make that judgment call. So you got to ask yourself every single day, right? Your friends want to go out, it's Friday night, you want to go have some extra beers and have fun with them? Well, wouldn't that be nice? Or would you rather maybe only have one beer instead of 2 or 3 and get that much closer to buying your home? The $5 a day, right? The whole joke about, a coffee a day. Yeah. I've done the math on it, do it yourself. You start saving that $5, $10, $15 a day and you get in that habit and you make that opportunity trade-off, you will start saving that money.
And it's fascinating that it kind of, I think I see a corollary here. And I've talked to Ron about this, that I'm reading a book right now called The Economist's Diet where I'm if for folks who haven't seen me, I have a few extra pounds on me. So I thought I'd read this because it, for some reason, connected to me that they're like, listen, they're literally saying like, look, nutritionists, you know what nutritionists have said. You know, you've read it. You know what's good for you. You know what's bad for you. What you need to do is stop eating. And it's literally looking at like the actual economy and the science of the economy to go, there's too much abundance. There's too much abundance, and we have too many choices in front of us. And it's like walking into a candy store every day, even if something you're buying, like your skis or something else like that, you walk in any store and you're inundated with all these options and all these choices. And at some point, you're just kind of like relenting and but at some point you kind of need to do, in order to lose weight, or what we're talking about now, in order to save, you need to think about the greater goal that you want to achieve that is more important than anything than that, getting that thing in your hands for 5 minutes and then it's like on your shelf for 40 years or whatever, and you don't even care after 40 years. You're going for something that's a greater goal, and it's worth, quote unquote, starving for. It's worth going through austerity like Greece had to do, and literally have to shut your mouth every once in a while when you sit down to eat. You have your 2 small meals a day, have a big meal a day. And what that does is that, and I think that probably even saves me actual money too, because I'm spending so much money on food and now I'm not spending so much money on food. But that's what I'm saying though, is that we have so many options that it sometimes blinds us in a way, and we just end up, we're consuming for reasons we don't even know, and we could be saving up.
Yeah, so think of it this way, right? If you're renting right now, right, everyone wants to be in the hottest part of town, in the newest building, the greatest amenities. I get it. It's cool. It is fun. Yeah. But hey, if you could find a way to live somewhere that's still close enough to work, still nice enough to live, it meets at least your minimum standards, right, and it's $500 cheaper than the other place you're renting, hey, that's $6,000 a year.
That's huge.
Back in your pocket.
Huge.
And you keep that discipline to save, and you will inevitably save up, and you should get closer to that goal of purchasing your home, as long as you don't spend it somewhere else.
Right. And by the way, we're not saying like compromise your safety or, if not have hot water in the place or whatever. We're just saying, listen, you don't have to be in the middle of Santa Monica. You can, maybe, you can live with North Hollywood for 2-3 years or whatever. Or you can live with Winnetka. It's something that it's a sacrifice you make for something that's going to give you immense amounts of pleasure and a future, a possible retirement later. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I was talking to an agent earlier this week, and, he's like, okay, here's a list of all of my buyers, right? A lot of these people have gone cold, and, why don't you see if you can stir something up, right? So I sent him text messages last night introducing myself, and then I started making those calls. And one of the people that I talked to, great guy, he said, yeah, I'd love to buy, but I'm priced out, right? Everything is so expensive, and for me, I want to have a place where I can do my my woodworking, and I want I want to have some sort of a lot, right? I don't want to just have concrete. And I started getting a little bit more into it, and he's like, yeah, I do construction and renovations, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. So, have you ever thought about, have you ever looked at an equity sharing program, right? There's a company called Unison where you're able to actually, they'll match your down payment, and you can stretch the amount that you can qualify for, because we're, working on a debt to income ratio, because that's how he was priced out. And he's like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. And then I told him about renovation loans where, you're able to finance the cost of the actual renovation. So you don't have to go out of pocket for whatever the, fixing the kitchen cabinets or, doing the installations and all of that work. You can actually, be able to pay a contractor and all of the labor and materials and have it all within the loan. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then he's like, but I have a little bit of a challenge with my credit. And I said, well, why don't we get a baseline? Whatever you have, A, I've seen it, and B, I've got all those predictive, software tools where I can say, if you paid down this on this bill, or, if you change this status to this, we just chip away at it. And man, this guy was fired up. He's like, send it to me. Let's do this. And, we're going to get to that stage. And as long as he stays engaged, right? That's the real key. As long as he stays engaged, we're now going to work from a framework. We're going to work from a baseline that he now looks at it and says, oh my gosh, this is looking to be something that's real. And he could start making those disciplined decisions because he's working for something that is a realistic picture.
Right. And by the way, and I think that it's something that is another side of what we were chatting about in terms of the sacrifices you make in order to save for these kind of things. But everybody kind of looks at this kind of situation as like, you know what, I'm going to be buying a house and it's going to be the house I live in for the rest of my life. And that's not even remotely true. You could potentially get into something like we're talking about with an apartment that's smaller or whatever. Maybe you get into a fixer. Maybe you get into something that you can put some sweat equity into. You can ride the appreciation train up, right? It's not like if you guys can sacrifice on the other side of buying a house, where you're actually buying a house that is a bit of a sacrifice, but you're getting in the game, and it gets you everything that comes with that. It's not an either or. You don't have to buy the perfect house when you first come out, because if you can, maybe 3-4 years from now, you're in a much better position, and you can get an even better house. I mean,
I would say this. I'm going to call BS on anybody that says their first home was their perfect home.
Absolutely.
It's just not realistic.
Yeah.
I would say I did a very similar thing. It wasn't a total fixer-upper, but again, I agree with you completely. If you can find a place that, again, meets your minimum criteria, your non-negotiables.
Right.
Figure out what your real non-negotiables are. Over time, that list might get a little bit smaller, but figure out your real non-negotiables. It was interesting as I was going around and looking at more open houses, the ones that people were flipping, right?
Yeah.
On the front end, they look a lot prettier.
Oh boy.
But you start looking at the details and you realize,
wow, look under the hood.
That's some cheap, shoddy work they did there.
Amen.
And maybe you don't like the wood that they chose. Maybe you don't like the backsplash they chose.
I literally just had an escrow with a buyer, and we walked into the house with the inspector. And he literally at the end of it was Ian, actually, our inspector that we've had on before. Ian kind of scratched his head at the end and goes, I don't even know where to start.
Oh, no.
And it was one of those things where you walk into the house and it's like the gleaming, beautiful steel, this and that and the sink. And you're like, what do you mean? He's like, there's so much wrong here. And we actually backed out of the deal because it was so, so when you think that you're getting this kind of gorgeous, newish flipped home, it's you got to really be very careful with, what's going on. And you might be better off finding a house with really good bones that may be in not your perfect neighborhood. But my biggest concern right now, Stephen, is that people are waiting too long and they're going to miss any opportunity to purchase. They're going to get priced out completely because they're going to keep on giving their rent to someone and seeing it flush down the toilet every single month.
It is very possible. I mean, here's the other thing to keep in mind. If you look at the real estate crash, right, or just look at the overall crash of the economy back in 07,
right.
08, real estate prices went down, but rent didn't really go down all that much.
No.
So that's a common misconception that we have, right? Another logical fallacy there that, I'm going to save all this money, and then when the market crashes, I'm going to be ready to buy.
Right? Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, what happened last time? Did you have all that money to buy?
No, you rode the bench then too.
Yeah, so I think that's another thing that you got to be careful of. Don't fool yourself into that. I think if you look at this from the long-term perspective, so here's some free advice, guys. This is one that I talk to my clients all the time about. You're looking at making a large purchasing decision, such as buying a first home or a second home or whatever, right? Buying real estate. Big purchasing decision. Is it a long-term or a short-term decision? Short-term decisions, a lot more risk, a lot more difficult to make. I agree that is a stressful decision. Long-term decision. Okay, I'll throw myself under the bus here. The condo I was buying, I knew this was not my dream home.
Right.
I knew I wanted to buy. I wanted to not rent anymore. I wanted to own something, build some equity.
Yeah.
Right? So I knew, well, hey, this is in a great area that, I can do a little bit of work on the place. It'll be really nice. It'll be what I want. I'll be able to rent it long term once I can, get to the next level and buy my nice home.
Yeah.
Who knows how many years down the road? By the way, that's already a goal of mine I'm saving for, right?
Yeah.
But I can do that. And at the same time, I got what I needed now, right? And when you look at it as a long-term decision, a long-term investment decision, it's a lot easier to make it because if you're fundamentally sound with your financial sort of calculations for it, right? You can cash flow it, your income is right, you're actually able to afford living in this property, right?
Right.
You have to realize it does matter, but at the end of the day, it kind of doesn't matter if the market crashes tomorrow, right? I don't even care if the market crashes tomorrow, because I'm still going to be able to pay my mortgage because I didn't overextend myself.
Exactly.
And I'll be able to write it out. And again, unless you're short-term trying to sell it in a year or two from now, I'm not.
Right.
So I don't need to worry as much. So if any of you are worried about the market being so high, ask yourself, do you plan on living here for 5-10 years or longer? Do you plan on holding it? In my case, I plan to just hold it into perpetuity.
Rent it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't really care anymore about that price going up and down. I don't care about the alerts I get from, Trulia and Zillow telling me, 100%. Oh, my property's worth more money today or less money. I don't care. I'm not selling.
Yeah, and it's like I remember, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, where someone that I know was like, during the middle of the big crash was like, I got to sell my house. I'm like, why? And they're like, well, because it's underwater. I said, what do the prices are going to come back. If you're not moving, if you would live in this house for the next 20 years if you could, right? So why are you can afford the monthly payment? Yes. Well, then stay with it. And now it's worth a lot more than what, it was. And I really want to get, though, before we move on, I wanted to talk a bit in terms of the savings for this, for like we were talking about, because millennials are turning into this kind of gig economy where, it's everybody's, going from job to job to job. There's nobody gets a gold watch anymore. Nobody, works at a place for 40 years and then retires. How do you advise the millennials, or anybody for that matter, who is a freelancer, entrepreneur, who gets paid not on a regular basis? Like they more have like big chunks that come in from these gigs, and how do you have them save up for things like a home?
So here's the really interesting thing, right? You wouldn't not pay your phone bill, right? You wouldn't not pay for your internet. Oh my God, no internet. You're totally screwed then. How is it that we somehow always figure out a way to pay for these other bills in our life, but can't find room to save?
Right.
I'll tell you why. It's because you're always telling yourself in your head, oh, I'm going to do that someday, right? Someday, I call it someday syndrome, by the way, hashtag someday syndrome. When you always say to yourself, oh, when I start getting paid more money, I'm going to start saving someday. But then you got paid more money, and what happened? Oh, you adjusted your lifestyle and went on more vacations and ate more of that avocado toast and sushi, which nothing wrong with avocado toast and sushi.
I've never had avocado toast.
You got to try it.
Is it good? Is it really that? It's avocado and toast, right?
Yeah, that's really all it is.
It's good with crab meat as well. I had that the other night. Oh my God, that was delicious.
But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
But the thing that you have to keep in mind here is you need to prioritize the saving. So if you are someone that's an independent contractor, a lot of our clients work in entertainment, right? So maybe you were just did a nice shoot, or you just finished up a production, you got a nice windfall. You need to have the discipline to say, let alone putting some of the money to the side for taxes, obviously. Yeah. Hopefully you're good at that at least.
Right.
You got to have the discipline to say, hey, I just got this check for X amount of dollars. I got to shave off 10 or 20% of it and get it out of sight, out of mind. Because if you don't do that right away, it's just like the junk drawer. You're going to figure out a way to fill it. You're going to figure out a way to spend it.
Right. Hey, Ron, did you have something that you wanted to
I was going to say, so let's say you've exhausted everything, right? So you looked at the renovation loans, you look at the Unison shared equity program. Another is for people that are comfortable already living amongst people, there's always the opportunity to look at multiple units, right? So you could be a landlord, right? So you already have your friends that are living down the hall, might as well turn them into tenants, right?
Nothing wrong with that.
And being able to use that income that you receive for rent as a way you can qualify for the home. You get all the same benefits as being a homeowner. You get to buy it as owner occupied, but now you're able to use that extra amount in rent towards 75% of the existing rent of the tenants that are there, or the market rents when you do the actual appraisal. So it's a good way to start to kind of build your empire. Right. So that's another angle for people that are looking. I'm seeing a lot of people actually looking at those types of opportunities because it gets them into the market, and they are able to use that extra income for qualification purposes. And, if you have someone else paying your mortgage, it's not bad.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah. So, speaking about the technology and that surrounds us and shiny objects and all that, I did want to kind of bring up the whole topic of Bitcoin and just kind of briefly chat about that. And that, there's talk in the whole real estate industry is like, oh, that house is listed and they're going to take Bitcoin for it, or I'm going to do a listing and and I might even do Bitcoin, and but it's I don't see that as being as big a deal as the blockchain, and I think that you actually have the same kind of opinion, correct? I mean, in terms of that being really where we're going.
Totally.
Explain just for people who kind of don't quite understand yet about the concept between the Bitcoin and the blockchain.
I could break that down really easy. So Bitcoin, which is one of many different cryptocurrencies.
Right.
By the way, for the record, there's about 180 actual fiat currencies, as we like to call them, fiat currencies that the UN recognizes. Did you know there's over 1,000 cryptocurrencies already?
Already? I didn't know 1,000.
And it took hundreds of years for us to come up with these 180 fiat currencies. So you got to ask yourself that, was this thing even viable? But put that for aside a second, right? Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is basically an example of many different types of blockchain. I think the real opportunity is actually in blockchain technology. Bitcoin is just one little example of someone trying to use it. And my personal opinion is long-term, I don't really think cryptocurrency will be all that viable, because blockchain is going to infiltrate your normal old fiat currencies as well as other things. So here's why blockchain is cool, and here's what blockchain is, right? It's this idea of a public distributed ledger. So what does that actually mean? It sounds like a lot of fancy words, right? So in the typical model right now, like you go on Google and you search something, right? You're searching and this centralized server is returning the results to you. It's just this one centralized server that's really fast sending you the results back, and Google basically controls that one server. So rather than that, imagine if this network of servers or a bunch of computers, right, was distributed. So if you go back to the day of illegally downloading music like Napster and Kazaa, it's very similar to what was happening there. A really good example of how we actually already use a similar concept of blockchain right now is like collaborative software like Google Docs. So that document exists on my computer in my folder. It exists on your computer, Tom, and yours, Ron, and hundreds of other people's computers. And when I make a change, everybody else sees the change, and everybody else has this copy of the same exact file, and everyone else is editing it too. That's sort of a very basic concept of what blockchain is. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to be learned and a lot more of protection clearly that needs to be put into place. But the thing that you have to realize about blockchain is it can be used for so many things. Imagine a real estate transaction for a second. One thing that you have to do is, you have to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you got to look at the title, right? Who's got title? And is it are there other loans or other people that are claiming on this title? Well, if somehow we can adapt and make blockchain a viable solution for like attaching your specific title for your parcel of land or whatever it is in the blockchain, it can only exist in that one place, and everybody can see it publicly and openly, and you can immediately just analyze and see, oh, okay, this is okay, it's clean, let me transfer that over to me. And through other technologies included with blockchain like smart contracts, if you've heard of those, we can all collaborate, edit the contract, agree to it, execute it, boom, done.
I mean, and from what it was interesting you bring up title, in that I just saw a guy on Reddit basically, and this was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He's figured out a way to basically put the title of his house into the blockchain. And that was, he figured it out because usually they only let, that only people could basically be part of transferring property back and forth, basically. But he figured out that if he puts it into a trust, and he can actually sell the trust to somebody else, that's how it can actually do it. So he found a way around it. And I think that's literally going to be changing title. I mean, like title companies might go away.
Possibly.
There could very well be, if it's in the, if that's the whole idea behind a title company, is that they're ensuring that the chain of title is correct. Well, if it's in a central area where, basically everybody can access it, and everybody, for the blockchain, what I've kind of understood it is everything's kind of an if-then statement. So if this, then this. So if, like with smart contracts, if the title is clear, and here we go out with a smart contract, we look in the title, yes. Then I say, then yes, exactly. And so we're already almost there. And so it's going to revolutionize the real estate industry, the blockchain.
Yeah, and other things. I mean, definitely there's real good use cases for healthcare, very good use cases for the Internet of Things.
Right.
I won't go into the detail of all these like firmware upgrades and how arduous of a process that is, but blockchain can be everywhere. Here's a really good example from an issue I experienced the other day with buying a toner cartridge. Okay, serious. I can't wait till this does get into blockchain because it would have solved my problem.
Yeah.
And sorry, but here's a knock on Amazon. You got all these resellers out there. We got a nice printer at the office, one of those big old multifunction devices.
Right.
Toner's not cheap. I wanted to get a better deal. I went on Amazon. I found a reseller. They sent it to me. I got my box. It's in a genuine, Xerox toner cartridge box. It looks real.
Yeah.
It's a genuine Xerox toner. Like I pull it out, it matches the one that I have. I put it in the machine and it won't work for some reason. I get a technician to come out, so I wasted money on that.
Yeah.
And the technician calls my attention to looking at the label. He noticed that there was a label on top of the original label. This toner was in fact refurbished. Now, the advertiser, the listing for me buying this toner from this reseller on Amazon did not say it. It said OEM original, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
I contacted them. They put up a whole fit about it. Oh, it's original. It's original. I said, guys, here's a picture. I'm peeling off the label. I'm pretty sure Xerox didn't put a label on top of a label.
Wow.
And they said, oh, well, we got it from our supplier. They never do that. Now, enter the blockchain. That one serial number with that very specific identification of that specific toner would have been in the blockchain. It would have seen that it was already purchased by XYZ company. It went back to ABC, Toner Cartridge Refiller Incorporated. And then it went to this supplier. And you would have been able to trace the full history of that. You start thinking more about this, and every single piece that's used in manufacturing to build a car, right? You talk about fair trade. Understanding where the raw materials were sourced for every single thing in your cell phone, every little piece of that cell phone, that general contractor, where's he getting his materials from? Did they fall off the back of a truck, or did he actually buy them? And are these bills he's charging for legitimate?
Right.
Blockchain has the ability to really infiltrate and revolutionize a lot of things, and that's why that's where the opportunity is.
And hopefully, like in terms of escrow, in terms of the real estate transaction, to be speaking selfishly, I mean, it's ridiculous how long escrows are, and it's usually because all these checks have to be checked off. If it's literally a database and I do a search and it checks all the boxes, we're done. We're moving on. You can move into the house, as long as that payment gets there in that place, then we're done. And if it's, cryptocurrency, then it would be even faster. I mean, I think that a lot of agents are kind of watching it hesitant, for two things. They don't understand it. They don't get it. But also in terms of where are we going to be in this process? And I think that there's always going to be people who need to guide folks through no matter what.
Yeah.
Because it's still a big old honking thing sitting on property that you need somebody to point at. You can go, that's a problem, or that's something that's not, part of the permits. Or I don't think real estate agents are going away, but the certain, structures around us might change significantly.
Very true. I mean, so that's a real good example, right, Tom, of how blockchain can definitely be a big benefit to many parts of the economy. And let's just knock on Bitcoin for a second, because we can, right? Had you actually tried to, enter into escrow in the, middle of December and buy it in Bitcoin, and then you're closing 30 days later, oops, you might have sold your house, but now that Bitcoin that you sold it with is worth 50% less than when you tried to, get into this transaction.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
A lot of people were Bitcoin rich, and then all of a sudden
Bitcoin poor.
Become Bitcoin poor. Ron, you had something?
Yeah. So, one of the areas that, that we were all kind of talking about when we were preparing for the podcast was, the difference between how much you can qualify for and how much you can afford. Right. So in my world, I'm looking at someone where I run their credit. I look at their monthly obligations. I look at the cost of the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance plus HOA if it's a condo. And I come up with my formula. And generally it's 43%, right? Debt to income ratio. So when it comes to how much you can afford, that's potentially a different number, right? So someone who,
it's kind of huge.
That's a big thing, right? So you're advising clients on what they can really afford.
And,
right?
and by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt Ron for a second, but it's like one of the weirdest kind of strange conversations that I have with folks where my clients are like, well, what do you think I should do? And I go, I can tell you that this is what you asked for. This is there, and this is the price and all that. But you know what you can do. You know what you should know what your expenses are, what your nut is for each month. If you can't do it, then you shouldn't be there, you should be moving on to someplace else that you can do.
You've got to account for the big picture, right? I mean, there's definitely, unfortunately, there's some unscrupulous folks out there. And, you know, I've had a handful of my clients come in and say, oh my God, Stephen, I'm so excited. I got approved for $750,000, $1 million. And I'm thinking to myself, what the heck?
Where is that coming from?
Like, okay, you got to Ron's point. Yeah, you got approved for that much. It doesn't mean you can afford it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, right? What is there an HOA, right? What are the costs for insurance and other things? By the way, how much do you spend on food and groceries? Oh, so you're moving out of your parents' house now, eh? I think you're going to spend a lot more on groceries than you probably thought you were.
Right.
So you got to look at the big picture and really understand, what can I afford, not necessarily what can I get approved for.
Right. And do you have any specific ratios, like, you know, where the outlay can't be more than 50%, or is it going into a lot more detail and really, you know, peeling back the layers?
You know, rule of thumb, Ron, I think that 40 to 50%, I hear that thrown out a lot, but I have to say it is so circumstantial. You really got to kind of look at your specific situation. And that brings us full circle to what we were talking about earlier. You go online and you start reading these blogs and, oh, I did it with this much and I did it with that much. I put 20% down. I put 5% down. A friend of mine was like talking about buying his condo last year, and he was going to put like 3% down or something. And I was like, I don't care if your mortgage guy told you can do that. I mean, you can do it. Is it a good idea? No.
Yeah.
Let's make it a goal to save a little bit more and have a little bit more protection built in.
Sure.
So you got to do your homework, and you really need to take a critical look at, how does this situation work for me and my facts? Not what Joe Blow wrote over there, not what it says on WebMD or Google, right? How does this work for me and my personal situation?
Great. Now, just in the as we're kind of pulling into the station here, any last really good kind of solid advice for folks who are wanting to buy a house in the next year?
It's not how much you make, it's how you save and how you spend it.
Okay. Go a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, so really right back into that whole smart spending thing.
Yeah.
Look, if you're looking to purchase a home in the near future, first get your head set straight of what's a realistic amount that you can afford based on all the other factors. What are your expenses? By the way, if you don't have a budget yet, you don't even know what your monthly expenses are, you're not even close to getting ready to make a decision like this.
Right.
Figure that out. Figure out your fundamentals. Be comfortable with it, right? Set your goal, right? So if your goal is, I'm going to save 10%, or ideally, I'm going to save up at least 20%, get started now. Don't be demoralized. The only way I get to the top of that peak every time I'm in the backcountry is by putting the skis on my back and taking that first step.
Yep.
And the first few steps suck, but you know what? When I get to the top of that mountain, it feels so good. So you know what? You got to start small. You got to start saving that first dollar. But you can't get to 100 without starting at step number 1.
Great. Yeah. Well, I just want to tell everybody that, as, we talk about on a lot of these episodes of the podcast, is that, there is a pipeline in terms of what folks should be doing in order to really kind of put themselves in the best position for success when they go to buy a house. And I've always said that you should be starting off with a very good financial advisor. And Stephen is a remarkable one to start with. I think you should definitely get in contact with him. Stephen, why don't you go ahead and give everybody your contact info so they know how to get in touch with you?
Definitely, yeah. You guys can find me online. Just search for @SmartMoneySteve. I'm all over the place. I do a lot of public speaking. You might have seen me already on TV, on the radio, but that's @SmartMoneySteve on Facebook, on Twitter. You can also check out my company. Happy to answer any of your questions. Just look us up, 1080 Financial Group. That's the number 1080 Financial Group, 1080financial.com.
Great. Stephen, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, great. Well, that's about it for today. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave them for us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Clarified Realty Podcast, all one word. If you have any questions about real estate, or you're looking for someone to help you buy or sell a home, remember, I'm actually a licensed real estate agent. I'd love to help you out, so please email me directly at tom@clarifiedrealty.com or give me a call at 818-335-7662. Don't be shy. Come on, guys. Give me a ring. For more exclusive bonus content and advice between episodes, please check out our website, www.clarifiedrealty.com. Also on our homepage, you'll find links to helpful buyer and seller guides that can give you some really great information for starting your home buying or home seller process. So definitely check those out. Here's something we're very proud of. We have a top-ranked Alexa skill. So search the Alexa store for the Clarified Realty Podcast, add our skill to your daily briefing, and get a dose of real estate news and tips every day of the year. Definitely give it a try. It's pretty cool. I'm on Snapchat, Twitter, and Instagram as well. My handle for all three of those are @ClarifiedRealty. Please leave feedback and reviews on iTunes or in the comments section on our page. Together we're stronger, folks. So if you have any questions or ways that we can make this podcast better, please let us know. My amazing theme song, Hey Now, is from the band Wolf. That's Wolf with 2 Fs. And please go check them out and like them on SoundCloud. And just a little fine print here, my brokerage is Keller Williams Encino Sherman Oaks. I'm licensed by the California Bureau of Real Estate, and my license number is 01715353. Ron's is?
Guaranteed rate, NMLS 2611, NMLS ID 558706, California and Texas.
The advice we give is only for properties located in the state of California. For all other states, please contact your local real estate agent or real estate professional. That's about it, Ron. You all good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, thanks for coming by, everybody. And remember, the greatest thing you can ever do is make someone feel at home. Take care. We'll see you next week.